Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Just moments ago on Truth Social, Donald Trump revealed one of his first acts as president. This is a big one. On January 20th, as one of his many first executive orders, he will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States. And it's ridiculous open borders. It's time for them to pay a very big price. Most of that, of course, focused on Mexico there. More on that later. Plus, Eric Trump will react to that and a lot more. But first, lawfare loses. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Well, he came in very hot against Trump.
Good evening. Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. The attack on our nation's capital on January 6, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy.
So sanctimonious, but it turns out the unprecedented assault on our democracy was committed not by Donald Trump, but by the legal henchmen like Jack Smith and their political and media backers. Now, today, Smith was compelled to file motions to dismiss his cases against Trump, one of which was promptly granted by D.C. District Judge Tanya Chutkan. Now, this is obviously a huge victory for President-elect Trump, but Smith and his allies tried their best to frame the result as not based on the merits, but simply compelled by longstanding policy.
This has nothing to do with the strength of the case. This simply has to do with the verdict, essentially, that voters gave. Under Justice Department policy, longstanding Justice Department policy, the department is not allowed to prosecute a president, a sitting president. That shield, essentially, also applies to him as a elected president, as the president-elect.
Now, when the news came out, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social that the cases were empty and lawless and should never have been brought.
They are celebrating. This was the goal all along, was that they would get these cases dropped. The idea of it actually being revived in their mind seems highly unlikely. This seems like the end of all this.
Well, but not so fast. While we love seeing these cases falling into the abyss one after the other, the petty and vindictive Jack Smith made sure to request that the cases be dismissed without prejudice, meaning
these cases could be revived after Trump serves this next term, right?
That's right. I mean, if you look at the language that the special counsel used and that the judge uses in deciding this, without prejudice, means that when Donald Trump is no longer president of the United States, these cases could be revived.
Yeah, that theoretically, the charges could be reinstated on January 21st, 2029, when Donald Trump is 82 years young. Now, of course, Trump's DOJ can and should take actions to ensure that these cases aren't just dormant, they're dead. So as we celebrate Donald Trump's beating the lawfare league at their own game, we must never forget how close they came to upending our entire system of government with their corrupt and illegal use of our justice system. Now, remember, they were so desperate to stop Trump. The left even tried to use a whacked-out interpretation of the 14th Amendment, which was a complete joke, to prevent him from being on the ballot in key states. Thank God they were goose-egged by the Supreme Court, which struck down the effort with an exclamation mark back in May. But ever since Trump announced his third run at the presidency, the D.C. machine and their venal auxiliaries were intent on locking him up. They're like jackals circling a wounded lion. The search of Mar-a-Lago.
It just sends the message that there is no person in this country who's above the law.
What we are seeing here is exactly what should be done. We need to recognize and praise Merrick Garland for following the rule of law.
The message that it sends is really important, that even the former president of the United States can be held accountable and should be and will be.
And Trump's aides and allies were forced to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. People's lives were turned upside down. Then it was, who will turn on Trump first? Who'll take a plea deal and give up the goods? All this speculating was so stupid. Then let's not forget following his motorcade in Manhattan to the courthouse. What about fingerprints? What about the mugshot?
Everything you're going to be able to see live on TV. They're going to be mugshots. They're going to be fingerprints.
Donald Trump will be fingerprinted. He will be photographed and end up with a mugshot.
A picture that will live in infamy. The first mugshot of an American president splashed across the front pages this morning.
Well, of course, he turned that into a huge coup for himself because he's smarter than they are. Of course, what about all the taxpayer dollars that were spent on these fraudulent cases? We'll never get it back. And we'll never really know how much was spent. Newsweek estimated that, about 50 million or so was spent by just Jack Smith's team. That's an understatement. So what we saw was a serious, concerted effort to use all the resources of the federal government to put Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life. And it was all because they wanted to prevent you, the people, from having your say. And of course, him from being president. So history is going to remember Jack Smith and Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, and the judges who let these cases get as far as they did as modern-day Keystone cops who chased Trump around, hounding him, trying to keep him off the campaign trail because they hated his agenda. They hate everything he stands for. So it's a mistake, though, to write them off as all incompetence. Their teams were backed by some of the smartest and toughest, meanest lawyers out there. They worked nights and weekends and through holidays, all to put him behind bars and subvert this election. The only reason Donald Trump is not in jail now is because of you, the voters. And of course, Trump himself. Imagine if Trump wasn't Trump. Forget about it. Most people would have folded like a $20 lawn chair. He fought like his freedom depended on it, but mostly because our freedom depended on it. If Harris had won, this sick weaponization of our justice system would have been validated. At least for now, it's on ice. But despite these setbacks, the angle does not believe the Democrats have given up on this lawfare strategy. In a statement reacting to the dismissal, Adam Schiff today ripped the system, saying, if Democrats, basically saying that the system itself failed the people, failed to do what it was supposed to do. And I'm telling you, if the Democrats somehow manage to take the House in 2026, and they could, it is highly probable that they will do everything in their power, stay with me here, to impeach Donald Trump again. You think I'm kidding? Well, we'll see. And if Democrats win in 2028, they're just going to resume the case that we're talking about tonight. And they'll probably try to go after Vance as well and anyone else connected to Trump. This is why the DOJ has to be cleaned out. I think Pam Bondi can do it. The Democrats and their never Trump poodles have done enormous damage to these institutions. And they will do it all again. They do not care. There should be, however, consequences where appropriate so that this never happens again.
Biden just handed out a pardon, and it's not for Hunter.
Peach weighs 41 pounds and loves to eat hot dish and tater tots and cross-country skis. Dreams to see, but the real dream he has is to see the Northern Lights, I'm told. Through it all, they stayed calm, they gobbled on, and still gobbling. Well, fellas, your prayer's going to be answered today. Based on your temperament and commitment to being productive members of society, I hereby pardon Peach and Blossom.
Now, we only saw one of the turkeys today at the ceremony. Peach was there, but primetime fears that something scary may have befallen Blossom. Our minds immediately went to the prime suspect, Commander. We hear he has an alibi, and we're going to keep you posted. We're just told that Peach and Blossom are leaving the White House now together and heading to a farm in Minnesota where they'll see some greener pastures. And Biden might join them soon, but before he waddles out the door, there's a Biden who needs a pardon. Hunter. It was just 2 Thanksgivings ago that Hunter, during their annual Nantucket family feast, convinced his father to run for re-election. And we all know how that turned out. Biden family Thanksgivings are legendary. It's where Jimmy the Chin squabbled with Frankie Four Fingers over a drumstick, and that's how Frankie got his nickname. So emotions are going to be riding high Thursday, and Hunter's set to be sentenced next month. He still has a documentary film crew following his every move, so there could be cameras around the table while the Biden family debates the felon's fate. The media doesn't care if Biden pardons his son. They say his legacy is already in shambles, and the big guy's been stabbed in the back so many times, what does he have to lose? Joe's already fast-tracking citizenship for illegals and letting Ukraine fire American-made missiles into Russia. The question we should be asking is, will Biden leave the White House peacefully? So far, he's pretending like he is, and he's saying his final goodbyes. He invited donors over to the White House this weekend for a black tie party, and he left them with one last message.
Don't jump in the pool. Jill and I are hosting this dinner tonight for a very simple reason. Say thank you. Thank you to so many dear friends.
But many of those good friends didn't show up, even the ones who donated millions. Insiders who were invited and didn't go are calling it the losers' party. Many said they didn't want to be associated with the Dems right now because of the embarrassing loss to Donald Trump in the election and anger over the $1.5 billion spent on the campaign that failed. And after the so-called loser party, where the only one who skinny dipped was the president, he flew to Staten Island for Friendsgiving.
Bad news is I'm going to end up feeding you. Pastor?
Thank you, sir.
Say an extra prayer for me, will you?
Yes, Mr. President.
But Kamala didn't get the invite. Instead, the White House posted a picture of her waving bye as she got on a plane. Sounds like they've said their last goodbye to Kamala, too. She's been in Hawaii doing a little soul searching. Harris and Dougie Fresh are shacking up at a $1,300 a night, 5,200 square foot vacation villa owned by the Mondavis. Yeah, the wine family. I'm sure Kamala's working her way through the cellar as we speak. Our spies haven't spotted Kamala on the beach or the golf course. We hear she's been working the phones while Doug works on his tan. She's calling Democrats and saying, I am staying in the fight. She's eyeing the White House again. She wants to run in 28. And it's not just Republicans who think that's a great idea. Some Democrats are open to it, too. No, really. They say she deserves a second shot. They say she's up in the polls, and she's proved a lot of skeptics wrong as a political athlete. Some Democrats, though, aren't too sure.
There's been almost nothing written about how she performs the candidate. Admirable of her people not to leak about it. But I guarantee you, particularly the people who worked for Barack Obama and even Hillary Clinton, they know full well what a disastrous candidate they was.
Obama and the Clintons both knew Kamala was a problem before the election, and she didn't prove them wrong. Bubba knew the whole time.
We have to just keep fighting. I can't say I was surprised. I had the feeling all along that at the end, this thing might break one way or the other, and all the so-called swing states would vote together because the last 2, 3, 4% were actually pretty much alike throughout the country.
The Ragin' Cajun's frothing at the mouth like a rabid raccoon. He's letting the Kamala campaign have it for appeasing woke millennial interns. Watch.
Not only am I not interested in your opinion, I'm not even going to call you by your name. You're 23 years old. I don't really give a what you think. And let me tell you another huge error this made, is when people said campaigns need to reflect progressive values. No, they don't. No, they don't. If I were running a 2028 campaign and I had some little snot-nosed 23-year-old saying, I'm going to resign if you don't do this, not only would I fire that motherfucker on the spot, I would find out who hired them and fire that person on the spot. I'm really not interested in your uninformed, stupid jack opinion.
Democrats got lucky with the pandemic and won the White House with Biden, and they knew they got lucky with all those mail-in ballots out there, but they were too afraid to acknowledge that. So they kept up this tough guy act like they could do it again, when deep down they knew they didn't have the bench or ideas to repeat.
A blind man could see the Democrats got their ass kicked. You have no bullpen. Who is it? Trump's been the Republican nominee since 2016.
Yeah.
Okay? It is clear that that's who conservatives want in the White House, okay? That's who they supported. When you look at the Democrats, they grease the skids. This is the person we want. It's her turn. It was Hillary's turn in 2016. That's for the voter to decide. And then I looked at their bullpen, and they had no one. They had no one. They had no one that could compete with Donald Trump.
Just like they were afraid to tell Joe to step down, now they're afraid to tell Kamala. Democrats can't tell a black woman who got more votes than Obama to take a seat. The best they can do is whisper it. An anonymous Democrat tells Politico, I can't conceivably imagine the party turning to her a second time. The Democrat power brokers are being diplomatic and trying to give her an off-ramp to be governor of California, but she's worried it might be a step down in prestige. The princess has always been a little concerned with optics, but Democrats have a way of making decisions for the politicians. You know, you can't let the people decide these things. So if Kamala does run again, she better watch out.
People who are thinking about 2028, they've got very skilled staff. They're going to start to leak stories to make sure that she doesn't jump to the front of the line and cut them out. And I don't think any Democrat fears her in 2028.
If you thought the backstabbing was bad with Biden, just wait. This is an open primary, and Democrats have PTSD from running women and losing. But a rich white male isn't going to take the crown that easily. Gavin's going to have to go through an identity politics gauntlet to survive. They're going to nag him to apologize for every little thing and force him into DEI hires. And it's going to make him look weak. It's going to be like Lord of the Flies. Good thing Rosie O'Donnell knows how to survive in the woods.
There was a squirrel rumble in my yard. I was like, you know, looking at that mom, like, Julie Andrews, you're shocking me. What are you doing? You're pushing your baby squirrel off a wall? But I don't know, maybe I didn't see the first part of the argument. Hi, baby. Hi. Come on down. It's okay. You hear them telling each other? That lady with the gray hair, she's out. Get down to the yard. She's throwing walnuts. Hi, little friend. Popular. You're gonna be popular.
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight we begin with a Fox News alert. Tonight, a monumental win for Donald Trump and the rule of law. The weaponized, politicized Biden-Harris justice system is now waving the white flag of surrender, thanks, frankly, to all of you, the American people. Earlier today, federal prosecutors, they dropped all charges against Donald Trump stemming from the bogus January 6 case. It is now officially over. There'll be no trial in the Washington swamp. There'll be no conviction. There'll be no jail time. There'll be no fines. On X, President-elect Donald Trump reacted, quote, these cases, like all of the other cases I have been forced to go through, are empty and lawless and should never have been brought. He continued, quote, it goes on, it was a political hijacking and a low point in the history of our country that such a thing could have happened, and yet I persevered against all odds and I won. Now think about this. With the election over, the DOJ is suddenly no longer interested. How amazing. In pursuing a case. As we have reported over and over, it is now crystal clear to all, these charges were never about justice. And the American people rejected all of the 9 years of smear, slander, besmirchment, lawfare, weaponization of justice, the politicizing of the FBI and our intelligence community. They rejected it overwhelmingly this past election, as they rejected legacy media, which is dead. Instead, this was always a blatant effort by, unfortunately, actors, Democrats, your federal government, to destroy Donald Trump, prevent him from ever becoming president again. They've tried their best. It is amazing that this man is still standing after all that they threw at him. But the American people, they knew better. And now it's critical that the Department of Justice undergo much-needed reforms. Measures need to be put in place so this can never, ever happen again to anybody, Democrat, Republican. The days of anti-Trump, anti-conservative witch hunts are over, and needless to say, Democrats are not particularly happy. Take a look.
Well, look, I certainly understand why he did it, given the Department of Justice policy that you cannot prosecute a sitting president. I think it is a shame for justice in this country.
Of course, now there's no accountability, either using the constitutional method of impeachment
or the courts.
One of the things is we saw all these cases and they never broke through because the media is different.
They're also very worried about what will happen to the rule of law now that these signals are being sent to Trump's base.
You have one man who has managed to really escape justice in all of the various ways that feels very unsatisfying in terms of the rule of law in this country. And it makes us more akin to regimes that we heretofore have denigrated.
It needs to be a little introspection and self-reflection in a moment like this. And maybe the fact that they lied to the American people, they peddled conspiracy theories, they gave selective information, didn't always tell the truth. Maybe that was the reason the American people widely rejected this. But the hysteria on the left, it is now far, it is wide. It appears the self-proclaimed saviors of democracy are having a difficult time with the election results. In fact, at Biden's own State Department, they organized multiple therapy sessions to help their employees cope with Donald Trump's win. According to the Washington Free Beacon, quote, one source describing the meeting as a cry session. Wonder what the mullahs of Iran, Putin, and President Xi think of that. And like almost every major department in the Washington swamp, the State Department is filled to the brim with woke anti-Trump Democrats who, according to one source in the Free Beacon, are unwilling or unable to faithfully serve in the Trump administration. Good. It will be a lot easier time for Elon and Vivek. It will be a monumental task flushing out hyper-partisan bureaucrats out of the incoming Trump administration and really return to constitutional order, which is all I, as a conservative, have believed in my whole life. It has got to be done for the sake of the country and to give a Trump any chance to succeed. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.